Okay, let's go ahead and get started on this there, everybody. Sorry for a little bit, arriving a little late on this. Let me go ahead and get Chrome working here. There we go. All right. Sorry about the late arrival. For the Unreal Engine, I was dealing with a bit on the Pega side of things. But we're going to go ahead and get started on the continuation of our study session for the audio mixer overview on the Unreal Engine. Um, just as a basic introduction, myself and Blackheart, we're working towards getting to learning as much as we can about the Unreal Engine first, going through all the topics that we figured that we're probably going to need to make a decent game. Then the plan is to develop a clone, and then after that, we are going to be making our very own game after that. Obviously, it's going to take a bit of time. We're covering this kind of, slowly but daily, or at least try to do that as daily as we can. Par for unless real life comes in and says, "Hey, you're going to be busy." Um, so, um, but I mean, slow and steady, will get us to the end goal. Um, so we got, you know, mm, over halfway done with the audio, and then we'll move on to artificial intelligence after that. But obviously, it's gonna take some time to learn everything. So be patient with us, be supportive, and we'll get to actual development in a little bit. We just need to know what we're dealing with first. So I see Blackheart's in the stage already, so let me go ahead and invite him to speak and unmute. There we go.
Hello there, how you doing, Jim?
Not bad there, Blackheart. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay.
Well, that's good to hear. Um, Sorry, I'm a little frustrated with the Pega session prior, so I'm gonna be like, "Ah, God. you
Don't worry
know,
about it.
I was trying to get something to work properly, and it wasn't working the way I thought it should work, but I don't really know how to fix it, and that's really kind of frustrating, especially when you're working with a tool and you expect it to work one way, but it doesn't. It doesn't work at all. You're like, how do I fix it? you know.
Yeah, it happens.
Hopefully, hopefully, we won't have this problem and that problem with Unreal, but we're probably gonna have that
It's
problem.
bound to happen sooner or later.
yeah, we're probably gonna have that kind of difficulty with Unreal as well. So we're probably gonna be like on, okay, we put everything that we need to put in, properly. Everything should be working fine. Why isn't it working fine? so now, last we left off, we had just finished off buffer generation or
Yes.
generation,
Yeah, we did buffer generation and we left it at that.
and so we're on to the audio mixer threading model. Now,
Yep.
um, again, I haven't received any kind of updates. Anybody commenting on the Unreal, which is, honest, it's okay. Kind of wish that there were a little bit more traffic there, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We'll, you know, we'll learn what we need to learn, and if we have some problems, then hopefully someone will correct us on it, or tell us, hey, this is what you need to do, and that would be great. Okay, would love to have that kind of um, information, you know, said to us. So if anybody else was kind of watching and were kind of confused, then you'd have those answers in the comment section. So, um, you know, it would be kind of nice to have those comments in both black hearts and my video at the same time. But you know, if it's put on one, then it's okay. We'll be able to tell each other if someone adds comments. So don't stress if
Yeah.
you only just want to paste it into one. It's perfectly fine. Unless of course, somewhere somehow down the line, you and I, Blackheart, we say we don't want to talk to each other anymore. That would be a little weird, but hopefully that never happens. But
Hopefully
uh,
not.
yeah. All right. Um, let's get into this, shall we? So the audio mixer threading model. The audio mixer creates its own thread to do the actual audio rendering. We call this the audio render thread. Okay. This thread is distinct from the audio thread and is the thread that does all the work for DSP source generation and mixing. Um, okay, um, so there's apparently two threads. Okay, um, or they're talking about two different threads here: audio render thread and the audio thread. We're gonna have to make sure that we be very distinct about that. If we start saying, we need to work on the audio thread, we need to work on the audio thread, and we're actually trying to mean the audio render thread, then we're gonna just cause confusion with each other.
Yeah.
So, um, okay, let's read more into this. The audio thread is the thread that does the work to determine what sounds to play and what their parameters are, processing sound cues, sound classes, sound mixes, attenuation, and so on. The audio thread is largely identical between the audio mixer and the legacy platform-specific audio engines. The audio thread currently has some complexities on how it deals with UObject and garbage collection. Since the audio thread has UObjects, it is fenced and halted during garbage collection. During runtime, these UObjects are read-only. However, in the editor, since these UObjects are writable, we don't use the audio thread. Okay, I'm a little concerned here because they're talking about, they're saying audio thread, audio thread, audio thread. I'm hoping that they're not actually referring to the audio render thread,
Hopefully not.
because they're saying that they're distinct. So I'm hoping that what they're saying here with, audio thread, you know, isn't them saying, "Oh, no, we actually meant audio render thread." Because they clearly said that, you know, this thread is distinct from the audio thread. I'm hoping that's the case, but I don't know. They've messed up before,
Yeah.
so
Let's
um
hope it is how it's said.
um yeah, I'm thinking that it's correct because, you know the audio render thread is all about audio rendering. Okay, so audio rendering might not necessarily determine what sounds to play. It's all about, kind of making sure that the audio is processed, right? So,
I guess so, yes.
but yet at the same time, doesn't rendering also determine what sounds to play as well and what their parameters are? The processing sound cues, it's like, it's like, are they are they talking about the audio thread or are they talking about the renderer? It's like, ah. Um, it's one of those things where it's like, God damn it, they're very very close. So I don't know. Um, in callback-based platform APIs, there is also a hardware thread that the actual platform hardware callback is made from. This hardware-owned thread callback nearly always pops off the rendered buffer that was queued up from the audio render thread and does very little actual work. Okay. Finally, the audio engine utilizes async tasks from the Unreal Engine 4 task graph for decoding and procedural audio, for example, synthesis generation. Okay, I'm lost on that one. That last sentence is like, okay, no idea what you're talking about there.
Nope.
So, you know, what do you mean by async tasks? I, you know, what exactly are you talking about there? And what do you mean by decoding and procedural audio? Again, I don't know. Not quite sure. Not quite sure what they're talking about there. So, all right, moving on, or you want
Yeah,
you
let's
want to
move
take
on.
a stab at that last sentence?
No, I don't understand it myself.
Okay. I wanted to give you that option if you wanted to, but okay, moving on. Generating sound sources. The first stage of the audio mixer renderer itself is source generation. To generate sources, the audio mixer receives parameters sent from the game and from the audio thread that define what sound sources to play, along with their parameters, such as volume, pitch, and position. Okay. Here we use the word source because the audio generated for that source can be derived either from a compressed audio asset, such as a sound file, procedurally generated by synthesis, decoded media, VoIP, or microphone capture, or source derived from other sources mixed together, for example, a source bus. A different method is used to generate the source data for each case. Okay. Um, I do like what's going on here a little bit in that, like for the procedurally generated, how they talk about, the microphone capture. Um, for example, if you talk about games that have, um, voice systems in it, in like uh, say Phasmophobia, right? You have an
Right.
in-game voice system that you can allow to capture a person's voice and try to analyze said voice um, to try to get um, the
The
you know
reaction from the ghost.
well, get the reaction from the ghost, or even allow for the communication between the players themselves. Okay, being able to capture someone's voice, using a microphone in game, and then outputting that voice again to everybody in that area, or through the um, through the radio, as well, right? Being able to kind of capture that and generate it into into something that can be heard from other players, right? So yeah, okay. Um, which I mean, obviously makes sense, right? So you can either
Yeah.
do, compressed audio asset, sound file like music, procedurally generated, which, Microsoft Capture is definitely something that is like on the fly, right?
Yeah.
or source derived from other sources mixed together, for example, a source bus. Now, this one I'm not 100% sure about what they're trying to go for on this one. Other sources mixed together. Um, Not sure exactly what's going on there, unless um, maybe you're taking in like musical instruments, maybe being.
I'm assuming it's that. I'm trying to remember because I know I've heard source bus before
Yeah, it.
in operating systems.
Well, I mean, the source bus was kind of already talked about on this page before,
Yeah.
under mixed sources. So,
Yeah, I'm assuming it's maybe like some thing to pick up instruments in this case. Like if you were
um,
to plug in an electric guitar or something.
yeah, not sure. Um, they're talking about, sound buses under mixed sources. If you just do a find on web page and do the source bus, you'll see that there's only three parts of it, and two of them are in the mixed sources. Um, so I don't know. But it seems like, other sources mixed together sounds like, something like, hey, I'm taking like, I want um like we have Rock Band or something like that, where you have, well, actually Rock Band doesn't necessarily work because the controls that you're actually playing doesn't actually do any kind of music. It's just basically, button presses. But um, hmm, what? To be honest, I don't think there's really anything that you could really. Uh, hmm, Maybe that doesn't necessarily work. Because I mean, if you're doing using like different musical instruments to record something, you'd want to do it through like another means, record it through another method, and just kind of save it as a sound file. Trying to put like two musical instruments together to try to put it onto the mixer to maybe try to save that file doesn't seem very wise. But unless that, I mean, unless maybe they're trying to go for it that way, but I don't know. I don't think that's right. Hmm. So it might be just we might have to go back to that mixed source
I'm trying
section.
to see what it's referring to with source bus. I think I might have found something. Okay. In audio engineering, a bus is a signal path that can be used to combine individual audio signal paths together. Typically used to group several individual audio tracks, which can be then manipulated as a group like another track.
Yeah, but
So I guess like source bus is like referring to the combination of multiple audios into one.
hmm,
So I'm guessing like maybe you got three microphones picking up three different sounds, and the source bus would just be putting those three sounds together.
I guess in some ways it's like, hey, you can either have like one sound being played, just the sound file. You could have like one microphone and that's all you're hearing. Or you can be having like multiple. like, ambient sounds, microphone, music playing, all kind of combined into one just, uh, you know, mess of audio that's kind of going into the source bus for you to hear. Maybe.
Yeah, that's
So,
what I'm getting from what I read.
yeah. So, not to say that, the my idea of the instruments wasn't entirely wrong per se, but it's,
You
obviously
could have
definitely
like multiple things picking up all the different instruments and just the boss is just putting them all together.
pretty much. In a rough translation of it,
Yeah,
kind of thing. Like you're you put like microphones in front of like all the musical instruments in an orchestra, and instead of having it's really difficult to try to put that all into one particular single audio source because then your audio track would just be like a mess of waves trying to like override each other or something like that. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to take each audio wave from every single source and then, individually, and then you kind of overlay them with each other, you know, into a single, source that you can hear, you know, instead of having like one instrument being overpowered by another, for example, like like a trumpet would overpower a flute, you know, if you put your ear up, right next to the trumpet versus the flute, you'd probably hear the trumpet more than you would hear the flute, for example, right?
yeah,
Um, but um, with a source bus, or you're taking all of those sounds, all trying to be individual and add them together into a whole. But you're still hearing them distinctly, separate from each other.
yeah.
So, so, all right. Moving on.
Yep, let's move on.
All right. Encoded sound sources. In the case of encoded sound sources, OGG Vorbis, Opus, ATRAC 9, XMA2. What? Okay. Apparently these are different sound sources, and
So this is from a
nope.
sound engineer right there.
Yeah, probably. Oh, hold on. I need to blow my nose real quick. Be right back.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
So yeah, it's like encoded sound sources. Okay, I have no idea what any of those are, so we move on.
No idea.
An asynchronous task is used to decode the audio into uncompressed 32-bit float buffers. Okay. This 32-bit float buffer is then sample rate converted, SRC, from the source's sample rate to the sample rate of the audio mixer. Okay. What is sample rate? You, and okay, this is getting really confusing really fast.
Yeah,
The
this thing looks a little bit too advanced.
This sample rate converted process takes into account any pitch scale that might have also been applied to the sound source and does the sample rate converted only once. For example, if a sound source is encoded in 32 kilohertz and has a pitch scale of 1.2 because the sound designer wants to pitch up the sound source, And if the audio mixer is rendering audio at 48 kilohertz, the sample rate converted will use the following sample rate ratios. So it will divide the 48 by the 32 and multiply it by 1.2, and you get a 1.8. This means that it will pitch up the sound source by 1.8 after the audio has been decoded. And what that means is, I don't know.
So
I'm,
you're encoding a filter to increase the pitch.
but why? I,
Yeah, seriously, why? You could also easily use a software to do that and just save the audio with the pitch you liked.
and I'm not quite sure what the purpose of this is. Um, for one thing, this paragraph saying, for example, it's like, okay, first off, I'm not exactly sure, like specifically what it means to have, 32 kilohertz versus 48. I don't really understand that dynamic right there. Okay,
I
I'm
don't
not,
know what it would be on the sound on that.
yeah.
I
Um,
can see one use for this, but like having a character inhale a helium balloon just to sound funny, but beyond that, I don't see the
yeah.
benefit for this. Fix
Um,
this.
well, I mean, I know, I've heard, this before, of audio sources, having the kilohertz and so on and so forth. That makes sense. Um, but I don't know, like, I've heard it before, but I don't know how it's applied. I don't really know, um, like, if I'm looking at a sound wave or something like that, does that 32 kilohertz applies to that sound wave somehow? I don't really know, and that's what's kind of throwing me off about it. Like, what does the 32 kilohertz refer to when it comes to the audio sound wave itself? Is there something on that sound wave that applies to that in some fashion or another? I don't really know. And same with the pitch scale. I don't know what what that is referring to either. I'm not really remembering all that, for like a sound wave. So, they're giving us all these values, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to go for on this one. Um, and why we even need to do that. What's the purpose of this? You know, um, why would we need to, um, what's the purpose of the encoded sound sources? What's that all about? Um, I mean, this entire section is like, okay, no idea.
Yeah, I know.
Um, I think we'll definitely need like a sound engineer to kind of come on in and maybe explain
Yeah,
this a little bit more because um, there's a
yeah,
lot
so
of
we don't get this.
there's a lot of details here that I'm not fully understanding completely.
Yeah,
So now,
you definitely
obviously,
need to explain this to us.
yeah, obviously, we can try to see if we can find something online that might be able to explain this a little bit more, but um, but then again, we might be searching for a needle in a haystack as well. That's what you know, um, that's what I have a problem with. Um, you know, hey, you just look it up online. Okay, well, we're trying to find, something very specific here, like concerning this particular use case. You know, where are we going to find someone that will kind of go step by step through this particular use case right now and explain, line by line what it's talking about? Probably not many. Probably not many
Mm,
people are going to be doing that, taking line by line through this and going, okay, this is what it's talking about. This is how you explain it. This is how you understand it. Blah blah blah. Right? You're probably not going to be finding that anywhere online, or very little. You know, at least from sound engineer. But I don't know. There might be one out there, but it might be a needle in a very huge haystack of audio engineers on audio tutorials out there. Um, so yeah. I mean, if an audio engineer is kind of going through each of these, working with audio sections, then maybe we, you know, link to it. Give us a link for it. You know,
yeah, it would be very helpful.
then we might be able to learn from an actual audio engineer what, as they're kind of going through this and explaining everything. Maybe we can ask them directly. You know, what it's talking about if we're still confused with their explanation. But um, but yeah, to my knowledge, this would be like a needle in a haystack trying to find someone that might be covering that. So I would appreciate any comments given to Blackheart or myself on that. Trying to explain it for the most part. So, but shall we go move on?
Let's move on. Let's move on first.
Okay. Procedural generated sound sources. In the case of procedural sound sources, the audio is generated through an abstract interface that calls back into client code to generate the next 32-bit float buffer. Client code can feed any audio into this callback, and the audio could theoretically be from any source. In Unreal Engine 4, we use this to do real-time synthesis, render audio from media sources, such as play audio from video in 3D, okay, including attenuation, occlusion, or with real-time effects, or play audio from VoIP. Now, I've heard of VoIP multiple times before. I don't remember exactly what it means.
I've never heard of it.
Here, let me look it up here real quick because I know that I've heard it multiple times. Um, and I know I knew what the term or like I've heard it used, I've seen it used. I've kind of learned um like what the acronym stands for, but I can never like get it like fully in my brain. Okay, so VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. Is a technology that allows you to make voice calls using a broadband internet connection instead of a regular or analog phone line. So, um, so instead of using an analog, um, you basically change that. You're changing the voice into a digital to have it pass over the internet. You know, with VoIP. So yeah, okay. Um, so play audio from VoIP. That sure. That's the players' mics. In a game, right? So this is also one of the many ways that third-party plugins can extend the audio engine. Procedural sound sources can be defined in a plugin, and source audio can be fed into the audio mixer from any other source, including entirely independent sound engines. Hmm. I'm kind of curious now. Um, how can a sound engine, in a sense, work with another sound engine? Um, how
Yes,
does
I mean like that in case like someone's like already used to the sound engine, they're already using it, don't wanna have to replace or learn the other sound engine that Unreal uses.
I mean, I guess. I mean, if there's a way to connect like both of them together in some fashion or another, then um, and I guess that wouldn't be, you know, like if you kind of do some form of connection between the two, I guess it'd still work, but it'd be like, why add on another very large like memory component into your game? It's like, okay, I get like, you get used to one particular tool, right?
Right.
And you don't really want to get away from said tool, but when you try to add like the requirements of that tool into like another engine, such as Unreal, then you're just increasing the overall memory usage of it, of the game. You're just adding in more files into the game that might not even need that might not even need it, right? Um, because sometimes these engines they will add like sometimes like maybe add a lot more files um, into your game that you don't really need. It doesn't really access those files at all, or at least it feels one of the things that I've been um, that I feel has been kind of changing over time is the fact that um, people will just keep on adding and adding and adding into a game, and the game will just get larger and larger and larger, and they don't consider that some of the functions, some of the classes, um, some of the engines or whatnot are pretty much deemed useless by what they're adding in. Like they're adding in these new features. That's great. You've just replaced this old feature from long time ago, but the game is still using that. It's the game is still including that chunk of code that's no longer needed anymore. If you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So these games keep on getting larger and larger and larger in size and in overall size, and you don't need it, you know. And now a lot of people will go, Jim, you're making a mountain of a molehill, man. We don't have any memory concerns. Are you sure about that? Okay, because I mean,
And it's always gonna be a concern.
I mean, it should be. It should be because I mean, um let me pull up um let me look at, Cyberpunk, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have Steam up, right? So I can look at, Cyberpunk 2077, right? I can just go on down to the system requirements, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, don't get me wrong, Cyberpunk 2077, it has a lot of graphics to it and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. Okay, so I'm very much aware that you're talking about um, a very graphic intensive game. Okay, so so this amount might be reasonable, maybe, but memory, they say minimum's 12 gigabytes of RAM. Okay, minimum 12 gigabytes of RAM, but they recommend 16. Okay,
Right.
total storage, yeah, according to the system requirements for minimum, which is the same as their recommended, is 70 gigabytes of
That
storage.
that's a chunky game.
That is a very chunky game. Um, so, um, and now some people might go, but Jim, you're right. It is a very graphic intensive game. What are you talking about? It's like, well, here's the thing. When you're working on a project, right? And you're adding in more functions, you're adding in more functions, you're adding in more functions, you're adding in more code. You're doing updates and stuff like that. Okay, especially if you're like using an engine or something like that. And I'm not saying that Cyberpunk 2077 is one that has is using a specific engine. I don't really know. It doesn't matter. The point is still that when you're adding in more code into your project, eventually you might get to a point where you know maybe you've added something in that handles the work of another class altogether, right? Like maybe you add in this one class that's really streamlined, that will kind of handle everything, right? So another class is pretty much deprecated. You don't need it anymore. Okay?
Yeah.
So, what do you do? You know, as a programmer, I would hope that you just remove that class. Remove it from your source files because you no longer need it. It's basically become deprecated.
Yeah.
It's no longer touched. Okay? One would hope. Okay? Because if you leave it in, then obviously the computer needs to make room for it. The computer still needs to save those files if it's still in the game download or upload or whatnot. Okay, it won't remove it because it's still a part of the overall game file. So, um, but that's the thing. Some people don't realize that. Some people don't really care about that. They don't really look at it and go, you know, uh, you know, we can just leave it in. It's only a couple kilobytes. 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 No, it's only a megabyte. It's only a couple megabytes. It's only a couple 10 megabytes. It's only a couple 10, you know, 100 megabytes. It's only a couple thousand megabytes. It's only a gigabyte. You see what I'm
A
you see
gigabyte of trash.
you see what I'm saying about it though. It just keeps on building up. Okay. And unless you do some actual cleanup of the code,
Yeah.
then
And sometimes that code can lead to bugs.
yep, yep, you know, especially when like you have one coder that's like going, oh hey, I can still use this old code that's been deprecated. And it'll work out perfectly fine. Wait, what do you mean that it meets a dead end? Where's it going? What do you mean? What do you mean the engine's no longer using that particular set of code? But it's still in there, I can still see it, I can still use it. What do you mean the engine doesn't use it anymore? What are you talking about? It's right there, guys. Hmm. You see what I'm saying? It's like, sometimes you need to make sure that you clean out, your old code sometimes. Make sure that it's nice and clean. Clear out you know, remove any of the dead weight because that's what it is. You know, um, a lot of people are so um, they don't give a damn about memory space anymore. It feels like, and it's like, well, that can be very dangerous. You
Yep.
know, some like some people might look at that 70 gigs and say that's too much. I don't have the space. I don't have the room. I don't have enough. I don't have any money to purchase another hard drive to make sure that gets saved on my hard drive, right?
And still has enough room for updates.
Indeed. Because they'll add updates. Well, they're
Yeah.
fixing a lot, or at least they're trying to. Um, so yeah, it's like, you know, 70 gigs is the minimum recommended that they offer. But who's to say that it doesn't out and doesn't add another like 70 gigs on top of it?
It is very possible, especially in Unreal Engine 5.
Mm-hmm. So, um, you have to be, as developers, we have to be careful about that. You know,
Yeah.
um, we have to understand what we code up, what we build, and if there gets to a point where it's like, hey, we no longer need this, then we should make the effort to just kind of remove it because we don't need it anymore. We don't want it anymore. Um, and that kind of goes for like the engines themselves, right? Like for example, let's say, hey, we're using Unreal Engine 4, right? And
Right.
we're adding in all these, things that we have, AI, sound, so on and so forth, right? But um, we're just doing a single player game, right?
Right.
So, we build the game for a single player and, we have everything being added in. But maybe the Unreal Engine decides, hey, maybe we should add in the files for, like if it ever needs to be changed into a multiplayer. Or we're going to add files in for multiplayer somehow, some way, right? You add, it tries to add in files for allowing um, multiple microphones at the same time. As an example, I'm just, obviously this is very much, you know, um, I don't know if Unreal Engine does this or anything along those lines, but I'm just kind of using it as an example. It's like, hey, this is single player, but Unreal Engine is adding the capabilities of handling like four mics at the same time. Well, why would you want to do that? You know,
Serves no purpose.
it serves no purpose for the game, right? Um, but you're adding these files into the game for that purpose. What's the point? Why? Why would you want to? You're adding files into the game that the game doesn't use. The game will never use. So why? So that's why it's like you have to be careful with um, I'm often kind of worry a bit at times with using engines because of that reason altogether. Like, hey, we're gonna add all these files into your game. Okay, are all these files being used by the game? No. Okay, then why? you know that's my thought line anyway. Um, I don't know what Unreal does. I don't know what files it adds in. I don't know how those files will work with the game? Like if we, when we make the clone, will it use all the files that Unreal Engine will add to our final product? I don't know, and
Hmm.
that's a little concern of mine. That's a little, concern that I have, like in the back of my brain. Like, are we really using all the files of the Unreal Engine? Now, obviously, we're gonna have to accept what it gives us, right? If we're using
Yeah.
the Unreal Engine, we're gonna have to accept what it does at the end of the day. Okay. The only way for us to really be very nitpicky along those lines would have to be creating an engine ourselves. And let's face it, I
That's a lot of
that
work.
that's a lot of work, and I don't know if you or I are capable
I
of
don't.
doing that right at this moment in
No,
time.
no, I don't think so.
Um,
Pega engine is very, very complicated.
mhm. So, um, because I mean you're talking about all the hardware aspect of everything. So, um, not to say that, we might not, maybe we will make an engine some year down the way, right? Um, you never know. I mean, um, Valve has Source that they made, you know. Um, Epic
If it's
Games
very real,
Epic Games has Unreal. Who's to say that, you and I, we grow a team into a point where it's like, hey, um, we're seeing too much bloat happen with Unreal or Source or something like that. Let's consider trying to make our own engine. You know, um, I don't know. I'm just saying that it could be a possibility down the road. So like, hey, we only want, we're a game company that only makes these kind of games, and unfortunately, Unreal or Source or these other engines that are out there, they're giving us too much for what we need, you know. So that could happen, you know. But obviously, that's way down the line. So, all right. We are past um, the mark. I'm at, you know, 3:07 p.m. my time, my friend, and you typically
yeah,
want to get out to do some, um,
get some food,
get some
get
food in
some
you.
num nums.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, we finished off the procedurally generated sound sources. So the next topic tomorrow will be the mixed sources. Let's see, one,
Yeah,
two, three, four, five, six, seven more topics left to go.
yeah. I don't know if I'll be available tomorrow
Okay,
because my dad and his wife are going to a friend's wedding and they're leaving the baby here with
okay,
us.
no,
So, and that they're gonna be probably gone all day, most likely.
okay. Are you gonna
I
be are you gonna be able to do Genshin tomorrow or no?
I think I can still make it to Genshin. I just don't know if I'll be available for Unreal.
Okay, no worries. Then I will make the assumption that you will not. You let me know if you can. Okay?
Yeah,
If
if I don't say anything, it's because I can't make it.
pretty much. That's what I'm making the assumption on. So
Yeah.
now, obviously, for those of you that are just watching this video by itself and not watching these streams live, it's not going to matter for you because you're probably going to be seeing the next video come up anyway. So so no worries on that.
Yeah.
But for those of you watching live, on stream while we're streaming this, um, tomorrow's Unreal probably not going to happen. So um,
It'll be on Monday, the next Unreal.
indeed, indeed. So but that's where we're going to go ahead and call it for today. Um, audio mixer overview is, um, you know, continuing along nicely. I'm a little concerned about the next one there, the OSC plugin. Not sure what the heck that's going to be all about, but we'll find
No
out.
clue.
We'll find out. It might be something that we're like going, okay, we're not dealing with this, or we don't have any clue as to what this is, so we're just going to go ahead and skip it. That may happen.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but obviously that we'll get to that. So, um, but we're continuing on with the Unreal Engine studying, so hopefully you all will you appreciate that. You continue with us on this journey. Um, if you're experts, we welcome you in because we will probably need questions answered. So I hope that
yeah,
you will help us with those questions.
yeah.
Um,
We've encountered several things that we didn't understand, or that maybe we understood it wrong, and we could use all the advice we can get.
yeah, indeed. Um, so don't be afraid to put some comments in the comment section, or maybe um, put links for other YouTube videos that might cover what we're maybe missing. Or maybe, hey, maybe you're doing a video series and you saw our particular videos and go, okay, let's go through what they're asking about and we'll do it step by step. Maybe you'll make your own video about it. It's okay. Just let us know about it. And we'll appreciate the effort along those lines. So, and I would definitely, you know, like pin that comment.
Yep.
you know, that's for sure. Or at least try to. Um, but yeah, that's where we're gonna go and end it for today. So, Blackheart will go and grab something to eat. I'll stick around and do some more video uploads, but that's gonna be it for today. So, help us out with the YouTube algorithm with the like and subscribe. Um, we'll appreciate any comments that you provide, and we'll see you all next time on our Unreal Engine study session. So. Thank you very much there, guys. And I'll catch you next time there, Blackheart.
Okay, well, next time. So most likely see you tomorrow for some Genshin.
Yep, indeed.
Right,
So take care.
right.
See you.
Bye.
Bye. And that's going to be it for this video. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. So take care there, everybody. Thanks for watching.